You cannot take all luggage with you on all journeys. On one journey, you may even leave your right hand and your right eye may be among the things that you leave behind. We are not living in a world where all the roads are a radii of a circle, and where all if followed along enough, there will therefore draw gradually near and finally meet at the center. Rather, in a world where a road, after a few miles, forks into two, and each of those into two again. At the fork, you must make a decision, even on the biological level of life, as creatures grow further and further apart as they increase in perfection. Good as it ripens becomes continuously more different than not only form evil but form other goods. I do not think that all who choose wrong paths perish, but those rescue consists in being put back on the right road. A wrong sum can be put right, but only by going back till you find an error and working at it afresh. From that point, never by simply going on. Evil can be undone, but cannot develop into good.
Time does not heal it. The spell must be unwound, bit by bit, with backward mutters of dissevering power, or else not. It is still either or. If we insist on keeping hell, or even earth, we shall not see heaven. If we accept heaven, we shall not be able to retain even the smallest amount and most intimate souvenirs of hell. I believe, to be sure, that any man who reaches heaven will find that what he abandoned, even in plucking out his right eye, was precisely nothing. That the kernel of what he was really seeking, even in his most depraved wishes, will be there, beyond expectation, waiting for him, in the high countries. In that sense, it'll be true for those who have completed the journey, and for no others, to say that good is everything and heaven is everywhere. But we, at this end of the road, must not try to anticipate the retrospective vision. If we do, we are likely to embrace the false and disastrous converse and fancy that everything is good and everywhere is heaven. But what, you ask of earth? Earth, I think, will not be found by anyone to be in the end a very distinct place. I think earth is chosen instead of heaven, will turn out to have been all along only a region in hell, and earth is put second to heaven to have been from the beginning a part of heaven itself. C.S. Lewis, April 1945. Now put your hands together for Bryan Lindgren for The Tale of Two Rooftops.
All right. It is good to see you tonight. My name is Bryan, and I think tonight's gonna be special. I've been praying about tonight, and if we haven't met, I grew up in Paulsbo. I went to North Kitsap High School. I ran track at North Kitsap High School. Went to state at North Kitsap High School. I work at our Central Kitsap campus with my beautiful wife, Kayla, and I've been praying for about 6 months for tonight. And I titled it, you can put this in your notes, in your journals, in the notebooks you got. Put this. I titled it, A Tale of Two Rooftops. If you maybe have a Bible and you're wondering about where we're going to be tonight in our Bible, we're going to be in 2 Samuel chapter 11 and 12, so you might just jot that down underneath. And my wife, Kayla, and I, we've been married now 5 years. We celebrated 5 years, it's just crazy. And so celebrated 5 years in February. If you haven't met her, yeah, that's her right there. Isn't she she's glowing? If you haven't seen her yet at camp, she's glowing. There's somebody in the church, they made us this. You gotta see this. Look at that. How cool is that? They made that for us. And then back in January, we got some really special news. We put it on Facebook like this. If that doesn't mean anything to you, it's this episode right here with Jim. We found out we're pregnant with our first. And so she is due September 4th. So that's coming up really quick. And the last 6 months, I've been thinking about tonight. And while you were in school in February, I was praying about tonight. And while you were on spring break, I was thinking about this night. And I think God's been preparing a message inside of my heart that really matters tonight. And I wrote this message for my daughter, who's going to be born in a month. And I asked myself this question, which is, you just start to ask these questions, like, what message would I want my daughter to hear? And I've spoke at camps, spoke different nights at camps, and I just felt like this is the message that I'd want her to hear. And being a youth pastor, especially to this group right here, a lot of you I've known for a long time, has been an honor and a privilege. And at some point, you just start to say, man, I hope my daughter turns out like you. a lot of just girls sitting here, I just like think of Kaylani Riley. Like, I hope my daughter turns out like you. Morgan Northup, I hope my daughter turns out like you. There are so many of you that I've got to watch and see the way you follow Jesus, and I just think, I hope my daughter turns out like you. And so I wrote a message that's for her, and it's for you. And I called it A Tale of Two Rooftops. And it's a topic that I want to talk about tonight that I've never heard preached at summer camp. It's a topic that I think like it matters so much that I'm almost like, why have we never just done a message on this? It matters that much because I think it's something that all of us are thinking about. Any of y'all, you grow up with like a family movie that you watch too many times? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like you had a movie, you maybe watched it like as much as you could with your siblings, and you probably watched it too many times. So mine for me and the Lindgren clan was the movie The Santa Claus with Tim Allen. Have people seen that movie? I legitimately don't know. Is that culturally like, did people seen that movie? Okay, so like, I didn't just watch that movie, I loved that movie. We went to Denny's one time on Christmas Eve because it happened in the movie. Like, that's how much I loved the Santa Claus. And, okay, so who's seen the Santa Claus? Okay, oh, perfect, all of you. So, do you remember that scene at the very end of the Santa Claus where he's like, okay, you can press this button on the sleigh and it pops out a cookie, and you can like, remember he's like, we made you the suit and it's like fireproof. Do you remember that? And what does he say? He's like, but what do I do if I fall off a roof? Here's what I think a lot of us are thinking. We sat here in this field. Some of you, it's your first time at camp, but I just see a lot of faces. You've been to summer camp. And you've heard Ryan Brewer's dates that didn't go well. You heard David Day and he had stuff thrown at him. And I think you're asking this question, but what do I do about sex? Am I the only one who thinks that or feels that? Because I think it's a question that we all ask. And tonight's message I wrote specifically about sex. Do you think we should go there? Because I actually am not sure still. Are you like, do we do it? I'm gonna be honest, we can still turn this car around. I could whip out another message. Do we head off into the end game or do we turn around? Okay, we're gonna go straight forward. Tonight, I wrote a message called A Tale of Two Rooftops, and it's about sex. So if you're like a 9th grade boy and you're like, that's funny to me, you can just get it out now, because that's like, it's sex, and we're gonna talk about it. Tale of Two Rooftops. Here's what I did. I made a little list. If you're a note keeper, do this. If you're a note keeper, you can write this down. I made a list of stuff we're gonna talk about tonight. So Santa Claus with Tim Allen, we started there. I want to talk about ripple effects across time and space. We're talking about sex in the junk drawer. We're going to talk about rooftops. That's going to be in 2 Samuel. Tove is just a fancy word for amazing. We're going to talk about this word Tove that is in the Hebrew in the Bible. Tesla's ludicrous mode. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk birds and oil spills. Spray painted sheep. We'll talk about Psalms 51, art that's more than art, and then a team that's with me. Those are kind of the quick hitters that we're going to do tonight. So I want to start with this, ripple effects. Your life has a ripple effect. You aren't just like singular where you are, but your life has a ripple effect. And you ever notice this, that like mess in your life, it ripple effects out. There is brokenness in this world, and it causes a ripple effect. And it doesn't just stay right here. Maybe you're like, I've felt that ripple effect in my life. Somebody did something, and because of that, I've felt the residual damage. I've felt the splinter of that ripple effect. And I believe this, that there is real brokenness in this world, and a lot of us have experienced it. And wasn't it just like, how special was it last night to get a right on those rocks? And didn't John Stifler do a great job kind of setting up this whole camp? What a powerful moment to say there are things in this world that we can just admit and say, it's not right. It's not the way it's supposed to be. And I believe there's a God that came here to set things right and back to the way that they're supposed to be. So let's start with this word sex, right? Because this word has got a lot with it. So when we talk about sex, some of us just have different pictures in our head. It's kind of a junk drawer word. So like growing up, were you a kid like me that your mom had the junk drawer in the kitchen? Right? So like there's a lot in there. I don't know, what's some of the stuff in there? Pens were in there, a lot of pens. A lot of rubber bands. What's that one? Lint. You said lint. There's just like dirty clothes in there. Okay. What's that one? You said there's gum in it? Like chewed or unchewed? Okay, unchewed gum. Your mom's just like, what else is this side? What else is in there? Tape measure? Okay. Batteries. What about just like loose, dirty change? Is that part of your? Okay, so like we do that with this word sex, right? Like when I say it, we all kind of have a thought of where we're going. I want to define it for you tonight, so when I say it, you can know what I'm talking about. I'm going to define sex as this: anything intimate with the body God gave you or somebody else's God-given body. Okay, so that's wide, right? Like that's bigger than maybe some of you thought, but I'm gonna define it as an intimate moment with the body God gave you. I want you to write this down. What you do with who you are is how you worship God. What you do with who you are is how you worship God. Now, I wanted this definition, this kind of sex is a junk drawer word. I wanted this definition wide enough because here's what I wanted. Honestly, like as I was praying for this field, I was looking at your faces and like I was just like thinking about this message. I wanted it to feel like the bar was higher for all of us than we thought. Can I tell you, I was talking to somebody this morning and they're like, I remember being 16 and I remember the choices my boyfriend and I made, and I remember going to a youth night and thinking this, everything's fine. She said, I remember them talking about sex, and I was like, whatever, like that's my business, not yours. And I want to put the bar high enough that all of us might have a moment where we say, you know what? God, I think you might need to course correct me a little bit. I think the way I've maybe lived or carried myself or showed who I am to the world on social media, or the things I've looked at or engaged with, or the way my boyfriend and I have kind of interacted, or my girlfriend, I'm gonna say this, the bar is higher than I thought, because why? We actually need God. Wouldn't you say when it comes to sex, our world needs God? Wouldn't you say in your own heart that maybe I need God? I want to define 2 words for you. Write these down in your notes. I just think these are important. I want to define 2 words to you because they may be the most important words that you define in your life. The word is identity and dignity. So there are 2 words I want to talk about tonight when we talk about sex. Identity is this: it's who you are. It's one of the most important questions you will answer in your life is, who are you? Not what do you like, not what hobbies do you have, not like what kind of attitude you have. Who are you? I don't know if you've heard this in your life before or not. I don't know what your parents said to you. I don't know what your teacher said to you, but I believe this: you were created by God for a purpose. You weren't an accident. It says in the Bible that God built you. He put you together when you were in your mom's womb. So you were created on purpose for a purpose. That's your identity. Now, we can hear that. It's different to live like that. So identity, here's what dignity is. Dignity is what's my worth. Now that might sound like an odd phrase or an interesting question, like I don't have worth, but I think we're gonna get to it because I believe this. Not only do we put a price tag on ourselves, but we put a price tag on others. I'm gonna share a story here at the end, but my wife and I, we actually had an opportunity to go to India and Thailand, where we work with Rescue Freedom, who's been a part of Freedom February, raising money to help set free women and children. Okay, so that movement that started with you, by the way, that started with a couple students who just had an idea at a camp and said, I think God spoke this to me, has now raised over hundreds of thousands of dollars to set women and children free from sex trafficking, which means that they are slaves in a system that takes women and kids and turns them to objects for sex and puts a price tag on them. And we believe that it's, as followers of Jesus, it's evil. And so you can actually see the ripple effect of just this brokenness in our life doesn't just stay kind of here with me, right? You can see how it starts to ripple out to the rest of the world. And as much as I just want to pretend that it's just whatever I do, it doesn't make a difference, it doesn't really hurt anybody, you see in this world that that's not true. And I want to show you a story where the ripple effect spread so far that I think one of the characters in the story started to ask this question: how did I get here? It's a question that matters at camp. you really take the microscope in on yourself and you like peel back all the layers and you dig in and you look at your story and like who you are right now and where you're at and the interactions with your friends, and you start to ask this question, how did I get here? Who I am right now. I used to be a person that was on fire for like Jesus, and I had this power. How did I get here? I used to be like a little girl. I had innocence. I carried myself in such a way that was just like, it was different. And I just like overflowed with joy. How did I get here? I used to be a kid that like, I dreamt of being like one of the heroes that I saw, a guy, a man that, you know, like would be a leader in this world. And now I watch myself compromising my life. How did I get here? We're gonna look at a couple characters tonight, and I wanna do this. I wanna do a great job with this field. You can tell I'm kind of like moving this mic as far as I can get, because I want to walk through this story in such a way that you feel like it became real to you. And I actually can't do that unless God does that in you. So if you're like leaning in right now and you're feeling, you might even just say a prayer in your head, like, God, make this story real to me. It's a prayer I've been praying all day for months, getting ready for this. God, make this story real to me. You're gonna see a couple characters in the story. First is King David. King David, he was a shepherd boy, so he like watched sheep. Some people say this, that like that was like his practice for his kinghood. I believe this, that it was actually one of the most important jobs that he had, because God taught him how to have a relationship with just him and God. David wrote the Psalms 23, where it says, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Like, I'm a sheep who needs nothing, God is my shepherd. He went from being a shepherd to, you might know the interaction where he like kills Goliath, and he has his armor put on him, and then he's like, I can't wear that armor, I just need a slingshot. There's gonna be a moment in your life where someone's gonna try and put something on you, and you're like, that's not for me, I just need my slingshot. He becomes a king, he's a warrior, he's a poet, he's kind of like a Renaissance man, so that's David. On the other side, we have Bathsheba, and we know a little bit about her, but I just think like she's relatable. She's just like, she's married. I think she cares about people in her life. We have her husband, Uriah. He's a man of character. Unfortunately, in the story, we'll see that because he's a man of character, like sometimes the world is broken and unfair. We have Nathan. I just believe this. Nathan is a mentor or like a leader in your life. Can I tell you this, that like you're a leader, it's crazy. Guys, you're gonna be an adult sometime. My wife says this all the time because she went to Young Life camps, and like she looks back at her leaders, she's like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. Like they took off work. Your leaders took off work to be here, which means like a lot of them, like they don't get paid for this week and they pay to come here to be with you. Isn't that crazy? They believe in you that much. And so we're gonna see that kind of mentor character in the story. So if you have a Bible, you can open it. If not, I'm gonna read it. I have really bad eyes. Some of you know that. Like, oh geez, they're not good. Like you're like, can you operate a vehicle? Yeah, so close. So I can't read what's on the screen, so I pretend like you can't either. So here's what I did. I'm gonna read it in the Bible. That if you're easily distracted, like I am, I was sitting back there last night, I was just easily distracted, so I had to close my eyes to picture the story. Close your eyes to picture the story when I read, because sometimes, you know when someone reads and you're just like, and tune out. Don't do that. I put it here some on the screen. I'm gonna put some of the key stuff I underlined in my own Bible that'll pop up on the screen. Otherwise, I'm gonna read, and then we're gonna talk a little bit about it. So this is 2 Samuel 11. It says this. It says, in the spring of the year when the kings normally go out to war, David sent Joab and the Israelite army to fight the Amorites. They destroyed the Ammonite army and laid siege to the city of Rabbah. However, David stayed behind in Jerusalem. Okay, so off the bat, we got some stuff here to walk through. So King David, like king, leader of like a nation. King David should be at war with his troops. He should be out on the battlefield. What do we see at the start? All the kings are at war, and where's David? Not at war. There are moments in your life when you are where you already shouldn't be, and it's the start for a bad decision. We're gonna talk a little bit more about that, about the ripple effect, where we are, where we already shouldn't be. So it says this, late one afternoon, after his midday rest, which is like, again, not where he should be. He should be on the battlefield, sword in hand. He's napping. Okay, David got out of bed and was walking on the roof of the palace. You can picture it. He's up above Jerusalem city. He can look out. He's taller than all the rest of the buildings. Jerusalem was built in such a way because it was expanding. Instead of building out, they started building up. So you had city kind of on top of city, like this sediment of these layers of city, and the rooftops just spanning out. He's up on the roof, and then it says this. It says, the roof of the palace, as he looked out over the city, he noticed a woman of unusual beauty taking a bath. He sent someone to find out who she was, and he was told she is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, and the wife of Uriah. Then David, again, kings are out at war. It's springtime when the kings are in war. Where should David be? War. Where is he? Not at war. There's moments where you're like, I should be somewhere, I'm not there. And in those moments, don't you find this, that temptation comes a lot quicker? He's not at war. He sees a woman, she's bathing on the top of her roof, and then David does this. It says, then David sent, he sent someone to find out who she was, and he was told she's Bathsheba. Okay, then David sent his messengers to get her, and when she came to the palace, he slept with her. David was on the rooftop. He saw her. She was bathing on the rooftop. Now, I want to just do a little work here, a little leg work, because there's a couple ways to look at this. I'm going to choose one way. You can choose another way. That's fine. Like, you get to do that. I'm going to choose one way as we talk about it tonight. So one thought is this, is because David's a king, he comes with authority and power, right? He's the king. To say no to the king, you could die. So one thought is this, is that David, he may have misused his authority. When you have an innocent woman on her roof bathing, and he misused his authority, and because of that, he took advantage of Bathsheba in a pretty major way. Maybe you're in here, and I want to do a great job, just like you're in here and someone took advantage of you, and maybe you've told somebody, maybe you've just kind of kept that a secret, and it really hurt. It was scary, and you haven't known how to carry that. I'm praying tonight God begins to heal that. Another way to look at this story is that Bathsheba, maybe she knew. Maybe she grew up and people told her that she was pretty, that she was beautiful. Maybe she knew kind of like how she looked. Maybe she could see from her rooftop, the king's rooftop. And maybe she knew how she was positioning herself. Maybe she knew that she could, if she was out here at this time of day and she saw the king out here, maybe she was using that to her advantage to get with the king. That's another way to look at it. Can I just say this for tonight? Because you get to pick how you want to read the story. This is how I'm going to read the story tonight. Both of them put themselves on a rooftop, and because of that, there's a lot of mess. There are moments in life where you put yourself in places you shouldn't be. And was it a sin to be on a rooftop? No. But did both of them know this? This is a time and place. If I put myself here, I will begin a spiral or a ripple effect towards brokenness that I just don't need. Guys, I'm just praying for you that when you go home, you would identify tonight rooftops in your life. You say, when I go there, bad things happen. It could be the time and place that you get on your phone. It could be the places you go to on your phone or computer. It could be the way you engage on social media. It could be what you put out on social media. It could be how, like, when your girlfriend or boyfriend comes over, you close the door, and you know, even though it's not a sin to close a door, that closed door is a spiral effect to some bad decisions. I don't know what your rooftop is, but we have rooftops in our life, and David and Bathsheba, they're both on one. David sends her a text. She comes up. He sleeps with her, and then she does this. She sends him a message, and she says, I'm pregnant. Story continues. So next morning, David does this. He writes a letter. Next morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and gave it to Uriah to deliver. Remember, Uriah is Bathsheba's husband. This letter instructed Joab. It said, station Uriah on the front lines where the battlefield is the fiercest. Then pull back so that he will be killed. So Joab assigned Uriah to a spot close to the city wall where he knew the enemy's strongest men were fighting. And when the enemy soldiers came out of the city to fight, Uriah the Hittite was killed along with several other Israelite soldiers. Okay, so David has Uriah killed. Before that, he actually gives Uriah an opportunity. He says, hey, like, come home, Uriah, from the battlefield, come sleep with your wife. And then Uriah does this. He says, like, no, I'm a man of character. My troops, they're out in the battlefield. I'm not going to sleep with my wife while my troops are out in the battlefield. David's like, no, like, I'll give you some alcohol, like some booze will help. And he's like, no, like, I won't do it. And so David has him killed. It's a how did I get here moment. How did I get here? I just imagine David saying, like, how did I end up here, as he's having somebody killed? And in your own story, I'm just asking this question. Where are you saying, how did I get here? Remember, I wrote this message for my daughter, and here's why I wrote it for her. It's because I want her to grow up in a world where she knows that, like, what God created was good from the start. So, like, there's brokenness. We see it in the story right here. There's absolute brokenness. But from the beginning, what God created was good. God uses, the Bible uses a word for good. It's Tove, T-O-V. You might just like put it in your notes, Tove. And that word means this. It means good, beautiful, or just like the way everything should be. God created like all of the nature that you see, and he said, it's good. He created animals. He said, they're good. He created people. He said, they're good. They're tov. It's beautiful. It's good. It's exactly the way things should be. I have a friend, his name's Cooper, and he came to me last night. It's his first high school summer camp. And I think he's been to middle school camp. He came up to me last night, and he's just like, people are worshiping. He said, I think this is what heaven's going to feel like. Have you felt that, like at camp, where you're like, this is a little bit of there's something good. And what God created was good. And he made man and woman. He's like, they're good. And he created sex, and he said, it's good. He not only says so good, he's like, do it a lot, like multiply out. Go read it. I can talk about this. I have a baby on the way. I'm qualified to talk about these things. Some of you are like, oh, that's funny. Some of you who be in the bunk tonight, you're like, wait, he's talking about sex. What God created was good. But then we see this. Go to jump, chapter 3. You see that in Genesis, man chose his own way over God's way. And there's a stress factor in humanity, and brokenness began to spread out. And we've continued a pattern to pick our way over God's way. And because of that, like, we've got to watch the brokenness ripple effect out. Stress factor. It echoes out. But what started was good. And I just want you to hear this about like sex tonight. That how God, like what God created, it's good. And it's not just like it's not just something like just to have kids. God made it so it would be like super glue for a husband and wife as they like are. Marriage has a mission as they're united. It's this like beautiful, powerful thing. God's like, this is really, really good. And not only is it so good, I want you to be able to fully enjoy it. They did like some statistical analysis over the last 10 years, and people who have been married longer and have had sex together like in their marriage say they have more sex and better sex than people who jump from relationship to relationship. And I just think like God created sex like the ludicrous mode on the Teslas. You know what I'm talking about? Like Teslas have that ludicrous mode. I don't know a lot about cars, but you press a button, it's like 0 to 80 and like that, right? Is it 80? I don't know, it's fast. Something's fast. I can't drive it because I can't see, but someone should drive it. I just like am asking this question though, like if someone hands you the keys to the Tesla with the ludicrous mode and you're like, sweet, I love this Tesla, and you got in a parking lot and then you just like hit the ludicrous mode in the Walmart parking lot, like it would be a bummer. I'm just gonna say that, like it wouldn't work the way it's instruction, like the way it was intended to be driven. Sex in our society is like something that just like we're in a parking lot and we're hitting ludicrous mode and it's not going the way we want it to go, and we're like, what? I thought this was supposed to work. What we do with who we are is how we worship God. What we do with who we are is how we worship God. What we do with who we are is how we worship God. And I want you to hear this tonight. If you're in here and you're like, Bryan, I've been in the parking lot hitting ludicrous mode on sex and it's not working out. I want you to hear this. I hear you and I know what that feels like. If you're in here and you're like, Bryan, I'm listening to this message and honestly, like, sex isn't, like, it's not me. Like, it's not something I'm thinking about. It's not my thing. Like, can I ask you this? Like, sure, it might not be sex, but like, what's your rooftop? There is brokenness in your life that you know right now. You're like, you know what? There is another thing. It's the way I talk about others behind their back. It's the attitude I have. It's the way I consume and I buy and I watch and I buy and I watch, and I'm never happy enough with the things that are in front of me. It's the words that you speak over not only yourself, but you speak over others. And part of you know it hurts, but you watch the way that you get attention from it, and you know that the rooftop is the place where you're like, I haven't said something yet, but I'm lining something up. All of us have a rooftop. We all have a place. David went out on the top of the rooftop. It wasn't a sin to stand out there, but the minute he noticed Bathsheba, he had a decision to make. And it's harder to make the decision when you're already on the rooftop. Listen, I went to this message tonight. I said to Caleb backstage, I was like, it's not the most fun message to preach, but I think it matters the most in this world because we have women who are being sold for money, and we have young men who are just trying to feel something. We have young girls who are putting themselves out there again and again and again and feeling nothing. God created you for love and intimacy and beauty and good and everything in your soul that says, I was made for more. And there's a part of you that wants to cry out. There's a part of you sitting here that you feel like tears in your eyes because you just want to feel something. And you're so sick of the games. You're so sick of the guys over and over. Remember, there's a season in my own life where I grew up in the church. I sat at summer camps and I questioned if God was really good, if he really had my best intentions. And so I walked away for a season. And I lived the life that I thought, maybe this is better. Because I'd heard messages from the stage. I always thought, like, do they know? Like, had they actually gone and, like, had they tried it? It was so dark. It's so dark. There's nothing about it that was rewarding. There was no moment on my wedding day when I was standing there with Kayla and, like, she was radiant. Like, she's like, everything you could ever want. You're like, it's that right there. She's like her little gluten-free self, blonde hair, just like everything. And like the best part is like, I'm gonna have a little girl that looks just like her. I'm like, I love both of you. There's no moment where I was standing with her on the altar and I was just like thinking about the past. None of it mattered. I just thought, like, I wish I would have done everything. I wish I would have waited everything for this moment. If you're in here and you feel like my life is not redeemable, it's not true. You got a God who's too big for that. Who's too big for that. Who cares too much. God came here in flesh and blood. I saw this image and it just like kind of shook me a little bit. And it was of, well, actually, by the way, I want you to have Romans 1:25. I want you to read this in your small group. I want to read it to you right now. Romans 1:25, because this is what happens. It says this. It's gonna come up here on the screen. It says Romans 1:25. It says, they traded the truth about God for a lie. This is what we do. We trade the truth about God for a lie. So they worshiped and served the things God created. This is what we do with sex. This is what we do with the things in our life. Instead of the Creator himself, we worship the things he created. The good things God made can become our gods. The good things God made can become our gods. We see that in our culture. We see that in society, and we see it in ourselves. God made good things, but they can become gods in our life. And when they become gods in our life, we've removed God from the throne and the pedestal in our heart. We've put something else there. It could be sex. It could be a person. It could be a thing. And maybe you're like, Bryan, I'm just not feeling this yet. I'm going to ask this. Where have you maybe moved God over for something else? What rooftop have you watched? You know what? Like, I've been lingering there. I've been lingering. Bryan, I haven't done anything wrong yet. I'm just looking out over the city on the top of my rooftop. I'm just getting the bathwater ready. Like, I haven't done anything yet. And he's saying, I think I'm starting to make something else my God. I saw this picture, and when the oil spills, like oil, sometimes there'll be an oil spill, and when it happens, it will like devastate, obviously, like the ocean or like, the water regions there, but also like it'll devastate the like animals there. I saw this picture of just like this bird just covered in oil. And I think there's another one where you see it's a wingspan here. The guy's trying to clean it off. There's also a turtle. You just see like covered in this oil. And if they can only survive, like the oil, it'll like totally suffocate the birds or the turtles. And I just had this picture in my head when I was thinking about this message, because I think for a lot of us, especially when it comes to sex, we feel like that. We feel dirty. We feel like a disgrace. We feel like we have to keep it hidden. We have to feel like it lives in the shadows. And I think sometimes when it comes to our friendships, it's like two birds covered in oil trying to like clean each other off. I don't know if you found that with your friend groups, but sometimes it's like, how can I help you when like I'm a mess myself? And I just had this picture of like, God's not looking at you and being like, do better, or like, you got to shape up. God's looking at you like, I just want to clean you off. I just want to get you, like, I want to get you all cleaned off. I'm a good father. And we see that in David's story. I want to jump to chapter 12, and we're going to finish the story. It says this. It says, so the Lord sent Nathan, the prophet, to tell David this story. Nathan says, he says, there were two men in a certain town. One was rich and one was poor. The rich man owned a great many sheep and cattle. The poor man owned nothing but one lamb he had bought. He raised that little lamb, and it grew up with his children. It ate from the man's own plate and drank from his cup. He cuddled it in his arms like a baby daughter. One day a guest arrived at the house of the rich man, but instead of killing an animal from his own flock or herd, he took the poor man's lamb and he killed it and prepared it for his guest. David, in hearing this story from his like kind of mentor, leader, friend, he's furious. He says, as surely as the Lord lives, he vowed, any man who would do such a thing deserves to die. He must repay 4 lambs to the poor man for the one he stole and for having no pity. Then Nathan said to David, he said this, you are that man. The Lord, the God of Israel, says, I anointed you king of Israel and saved you from the power of Saul. I gave you your master's house and his wife's and kingdoms of Israel and Judah. And if that had not been enough, I would have given you much, much more. Why then have you despised the word of the Lord and done this horrible deed? He's like, David, that's you. My friend Clay and I, we went to this, we were shooting this video for New Life, and we went to this pasture. It's way out in Allen. And there's sheep running around, and I just think they're cool animals. Just got like the one metaphor throughout scripture of us is sheep, and I love that image. And we're in this pasture, and this Australian couple who moved to Allen, and they got just like huge acres. And the cool thing is, I just think it's cool. They open the gate, and the sheep herding dogs run through, and then you can hear the sounds of these little hoofs coming down over this field as these lambs. There's one, he had a green spray paint on his back, like a green, kind of like that. And we're like, why does that sheep have green on his back? And in her Australian accent, she's like, oh, that's Kevin. She's like, Kevin's our pet sheep. We don't want to slaughter him, so we sometimes forget, and we don't want him to accidentally get slaughtered, so we spray paint him. Like, right on, Kevin. There's like little lambs. I'm gonna ask this question, and this is kind of deep. I want to start with this, is what's been stolen from you that felt as innocent as a lamb? And tonight you just need to say, God, like, heal that in me. It got stolen. It got taken too soon. It's precious. I want to ask a deeper question. I get like there's layers. Guys, this just might be like, it might be just deep enough for, I want to challenge some of you to say, like, I'm going to actually ask myself that. Not what's been taken from me. What have I taken from somebody else that tonight I need to say I'm sorry for to God? Listen, like, there is a God of immense forgiveness, so much forgiveness. They said, I'll get on a cross for you. I'll die for you. And if you believe that even a little bit, that's true, tonight in that one place that feels so deep, you can say, God, I'm going to give it to you. I said David was a poet. And right after this moment in scripture where Nathan said, like, that's you, David, he writes a lyrics to a song. He writes a psalm. It's Psalm 51. And I want to do this tonight. I want to give you just a second. This is just with you and your Creator. And if you don't know, like, God made you. Your identity is in Him. He loves you. He put you together. Not only that, He put on flesh and blood and got on a cross for the sins that He knew. Like, He knew it would be there. He knew you'd do it. He knew you'd sit here tonight. And He still said, like, it's all for you. A little messy, like covered in oil spill you. Like, I just want to clean you off. Looking at you, and He said, like, this matters tonight. So I want to give you, if you're like maybe easily distracted, you can move, you can shift yourself. I'm just going to ask, like, don't bother the person next to you, because you just like never know what God's saying to them right now. I'm going to read Psalm 51. I kind of like want to read it over you. I said my wife and I, we traveled to Thailand. And we walked down the street. It's in a city called Pattaya. Pattaya is beautiful. It's like a big, wide open bay. If it wasn't the city it was, you'd be like, it's like one of the most beautiful cities in the world. It's the capital of sex slavery. There's 30,000 girls per night on these streets being sold. You walk through the streets, and at every bar there's girls, and they have these little tags on them, and they're numbers, like 1, 2, 5, 10. So that men can order them like you would order food off a menu. And that number correlates to a price tag, and that's her worth. And you say, Bryan, like, that's all the way around the world. Like, listen, like, I've made some mistakes in my life. I'm not that. We stayed in a hotel that was right down there in the city. We stayed with Rescue Freedom. And you go in the elevator, and all the men who are buying these girls, they're American guys. They're Western guys. You get in the elevator with them, and they got like girls with them. And you got to ride the elevator, and you're like standing there, and you ask, how did we get here? Because you get right, like, what ends human trafficking? Like, we could end it tomorrow if men just stopped buying girls. And I have to believe that inside of Bryan, there is some brokenness. There are rooftops that I have gone on in my life. There are places where I have sinned that I said, I am a part of the ripple effect and evil in this world. And I can't pretend like I'm good anymore. I have to step back and say, God, give me a new heart. God, give me a new heart, because I don't want to be part of brokenness in this world. And I'm not saying anybody in this room that you're like, well, I'm going to go there and I'm going to do that. I'm just asking this question. How does brokenness ripple effect from out of us and out into this world? And how do we allow the good God, a great God, to pour out grace tonight, not so that we would feel shame, not that we would feel condemned, not that we would feel worthless, but we would realize that our price tag, we are a child of God. We are a kid of the kingdom. Our price tag is immeasurable because God's love is poured out on this world. He says, I love you so much. And out of that love, we repent. And we say, God, I'm sorry. I'm going to read Psalm 51, and you can close your eyes if you want to. You can just listen to David's words. This is just after him realizing that rooftop moment led to a lot of destruction. David writes this, he says, and maybe as you listen to it, this is just your prayer. He says, have mercy on me, O God, because of your unfailing love, because of your great compassion. Blot out the stain of my sins. Wash me clean from my guilt. Some of you just feel that guilt tonight. It's heavy. He says, purify me from my sin, for I recognize my rebellion. It haunts me day and night. Against you and you alone, God, I've sinned. I have done what is evil in your sight. You will be proved right in what you say, and your judgment against me is just, for I was born a sinner from the moment my mother conceived me, but you desire honesty from the womb, teaching me wisdom even there. David says this, he says, purify me of my sins, and I will be clean. Wash me, and I will be whiter than snow. Oh, give me back my joy again. God, in this field, in this space, for those of us who feel like our innocence has been taken, or we've taken innocence from somebody else, God, give us our joy again. You have broken me. Now let me rejoice. Don't keep looking at my sins. Remove the stain of my guilt. Create in me a clean heart, oh God. Maybe just right here in this space, you're going to say that under your breath. God, create in me a clean heart. Renew a loyal spirit within me. Do not banish me from your presence, and don't take your Holy Spirit from me. Restore the joy of my salvation. You have an identity. The Bible says that you are a new creation, that the old is gone and the new has come in Christ Jesus. And you're gonna have a moment here on this field to begin to ask God, God, where is this roof? Where are the rooftops? Where's the temptation? Where's the sin that I just hold on to? We're gonna have a song, and I want you to listen to how God takes the ugliness of our life. He turns it into something beautiful. But sitting here in this field, here's what I want us to do tonight. And I just think last night was really special. I saw a student. I care a ton. You guys, like, we care about you a ton. I've been praying, and she had a moment with a leader, and I was just like, that is so good. And there's like hugging. I could tell like she's having a moment with God. And I'm just gonna ask tonight though that we do things a little bit different. Instead of leaning on each other, I'm just gonna ask, like, that same emotion and that same like drive to connect, will you connect with God? The same way David said, like, I'm just gonna connect with my Creator. Will you take the ugliness, the mess that's inside of you, and say, God, like, I need you to tell me what my real identity is. Give me my dignity back. We're gonna have a song, and then I'm gonna come back up, and we're gonna have kind of a cool moment together, and then we'll head to our groups. But during this song, I just want you to start to ask God, what is it? Create in me a clean heart, oh God. God might put some things in your in your heart that you're like, it's hard and it hurts, but I think this is a safe enough space, and we can trust that God is good. Will you reflect with me in this moment?